All right, let's talk about jobs. It's the #1 factor holding back the U.S. economy. The economy is not generating employment. The nation's unemployment rate is 9.1%. How can businesses contribute to improving the economy? Well, my guest is the former Minnesota Congressman Mark Kennedy. He's now the chief executive of Chartwell Strategic Advisors. Thanks so much for joining us, Congressman. I appreciate it. We were just talking during the break, kind of moved over. But this idea of jobs and the economy, businesses create long-term jobs. Is that something that you think everybody understands?
I don't think they do understand. I mean, we're in a period now where some people think that just more government spending, more funding or lower rates is going to do it. Right now, we need to reduce the risk so that the businesses get off the sidelines and invest some of that cash.
What kind of risks are you talking about?
Well, they're not understanding, are we going to get this fiscal challenge solved? They know it can't go on
The fiscal
forever.
challenge in Washington.
You got trillions of dollars of deficits for as long as the eye can see. They know that can't go on forever. They know it ultimately must be solved someday. Are we going to get it done soon enough? How is it going to get done? How much increased taxes will they have to pay? And the regulations that we've already passed. The new health care bill, the new finance bill, the details of those regulations aren't known, and they're having a hard time coming up with those. All those create uncertainty, increased risk. Increased risk means you leave your capital on the sidelines.
All right, but what about the contention that at the moment the government needs to pick up the slack from private industry and it needs to be able to support the economy until private industry sees substantial demand from the consumer?
Well, how'd that work for us last time, to begin with? And in reality, it is business that does create the jobs. Right now, we have a tax code that is resulting in the highest corporate tax rate, in essence, of industrialized countries. We are taxing employment. We are making it harder. Until we start addressing the real issues that are keeping business from investing, the tax code, the regulation, overreach, and this fiscal overhang, we're not going to get businesses. And so how much longer can we just keep trying to subsidize the economy through more government spending until business gets going?
All right, but you mentioned the tax code, and the current tax code goes back to previous administrations, not just the Obama administration, the Bush administration as well. And also we know that many corporations, they use various deductions in order to pay less than the stated rate of tax.
But at the margin, the small business people that can't afford the expensive tax attorneys and lawyers to figure out how to get those special breaks, they're the ones that we need to get to invest. So we need to have a tax reform that cuts out a lot of those loopholes and lowers the rates for everyone. And to talk about, okay, increased revenue to solve this fiscal hole without talking about tax reform just scares people. You put those two together and you can probably solve both problems.
Do you think that the Republicans and the Democrats will be able to come together and maybe make a serious effort to reform the tax code?
We need to have leadership. And if we're going to get a fiscal adjustment that's really going to be meaningful and it's really going to help the economy and really going to give confidence back, it has to be a lot bigger than we're talking about, and it has to include tax reform.
All right, but as a former Republican congressman who's run for elected office, we're going into a very big election season, the 2012 elections. I mean, is it likely that anything happens between now and then?
I don't think we have any choice. The markets have been putting more and more pressure on the elected leaders. You know, they decide to put it off or they start posturing it away where they're really not looking like they're going to do anything. Market drops another 500 points. Sooner or later, the market is going to apply enough pressure, or people are going to apply enough pressure that they're going to have to do it. And I think it's ultimately the right thing to do politically. If the electorate sees their leaders stepping forward and taking bold decisions that are actually going to solve the problems that are facing us, I think that's a win. So ultimately, I think the attractiveness of doing the right thing politically and the pressure from people like the markets can hopefully get us to the right direction. Now,
you mentioned, in addition to a revamp of the tax code, you talked about regulations for businesses. Are there specific changes that you would like to see? Because I was under the impression, for example, the president suspended certain Environmental Protection Agency rules because he thinks it's hampering business.
He suspended one, and we're moving forward with the regulations that were in the Bush administration that will be further advancing that regulation. But in reality, look at just the financial markets, which is a focus you have. Look at Hong Kong's IPO rate versus how many IPOs are happening here in New York. The fact that this is becoming less and less an attractive place to do business, to do finance, relative to other markets in the world, is limiting our ability to really be competitive. If you look over the last several decades, almost all the jobs that we increased in net creation were in the non-tradable part of the economy. We are still not competitive, and until folks move off from this stalemate and start talking not just about fiscal adjustments, but how do we make America a more competitive economy, we're not going to be getting the kind of job growth we need.
Do you think that we're going to get any new trade agreements in this Congress?
We should. I mean, the president has said that he's for Korea and the other two that are sitting there for nearly 5 years now. But we need to move beyond that, because one of the most proven ways of getting economic growth is to reignite trade. And we not only have this big debt overhang and the fiscal issues in both U.S. and Europe, but we have to ignite the growth of the consumer economy in the emerging world, and we need to get trade going.
I want to thank you very much, former Minnesota Congressman Mark Kennedy, now the head of Chartwell Strategic Advisory.